Hey, gang, summertime, baseball, golf season in full swing. So much more. Parx Casino has got it all going on. The official betting operator of the PGA Tour. Did you know that? The BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app follow all your summer-long programs and sports and fun stuff. We're talking PA, New Jersey, Ohio, whether you're on the beach, the boat, the boardwalk, the lake, take that casino in the palm of your hand and your smartphone with you. Get in on the action. BetParx has you covered. It's all right in the palm of your hand. Odds and bets and slots and games. Join me and download the BetParx Casino and Sportsbook app right now, the only sportsbook app that I recommend. Check out live in-game betting, same-game parlays, teasers, and more. You can bet more than just the score. You know, all those prop bets that we do in the big game early in the year, you could do that year-round at BetParx on all the games. That's what I'm trying to say. BetParx.com, they've got terms and conditions. All new users bet $10, get $125 in sportsbook bonus if your first bet wins. Got to be 21 in Pennsylvania or New Jersey or Ohio. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. So, of course, the lead story today, everywhere, is the affirmative action decision from the Supreme Court of the United States. Let me give it to you by the numbers. It's really not a surprise that this would be the way the court would go, but a lot of interesting aspects of it. By the numbers, it was a 6-3 decision. The pages of opinion total 237. I will tell you that I did my Evelyn Wood speed read version last night. It's very dense. It's very thorough. Like every one of these opinions, whether you're reading Clarence Thomas, whether you're reading Ketanji Brown Jackson, whether you're reading Chief Justice Roberts, they're all very deliberative. And you would say, well, Michael, isn't that always the way the Supreme Court opinions are? No, this is different. Like everybody had something they wanted to get off their chest. And they wanted to put it in historical context in terms of explaining, in particular, the black experience in America. It's worthy. I mean, I was going to publish today at Smerconish.com in the newsletter the link to the opinion. And then I thought, virtually every one of the stories that I'm reading has a link to the opinion. Some of them are annotated. So it's there, easily found if you'd like to invest the time. And I do recommend it. It's a heavy lift. I'm not going to lie to you. 237 pages of opinion. Next, number 3. Because the strongest opinions came from the justices of color. So I'm talking Clarence Thomas, and I'm talking Ketanji Brown Jackson, and I'm talking Sonia Sotomayor. Here's another number for you, 58. 58, that's the number of pages of Clarence Thomas alone in terms of his concurring opinion with the Chief Justice in the overruling of affirmative action precedent, meaning the end of race-conscious admissions. 7, there's another number for you. 7, that's the total number. TC, do you like this? Do you like my number analysis?
I love this.
Okay.
I'm
I gotta
like good. I wondered, your head was down all morning and I was like, what is he?
Yeah, I'm busy here.
There? And
I'm busy.
Yeah, I can tell. Now I see what you were doing.
Well, I just wanted to try and come at it from a different angle. What is left to be said?
Yeah. The numbers.
There's a great line. I'll credit my friend Shane Inspector. I don't even know if it's his.
Okay.
And I'm probably going to mangle it. But he says something like, and I've heard him do this as an after-dinner speaker, where he's at the end of the road, like everybody has spoken. Maybe it's a tribute, like we're honoring somebody.
Like what's left to say kind of thing.
And you're sitting there and it's like, oh my God, I was going to say, I've had this experience countless times. Oh, Jesus, I was going to say, oh no, I was going to. So he gets up and he says, everything has been said, just not by everybody. And then we'll go into his remarks. That's not bad, right?
I like that.
That's how I feel today.
Well. Okay.
Okay, 237.
You're doing well. Go ahead.
237, the pages of opinion. 3, the strongest of the opinions coming from the justices of color. If you're not going to read anything else, read those. 7, the number of pages that Clarence Thomas devoted to responding to Ketanji Brown Jackson. 7 pages. 2. Here's another number for you, 2. That's the number of footnotes that I found particularly interesting in the Supreme Court opinion. Yeah, 2 footnotes that are worthy of your attention.
Wait a minute. There have to be a ton of footnotes.
Oh my God!
So you literally picked out 2?
Yeah, 2. I'm gonna explain them to you. So I told you, Clarence Thomas devotes 7 pages to refuting Ketanji Brown Jackson. By the way, you understand what's going on here. Clarence Thomas is in the majority, but they all get to see what the others are going to be writing. And then you can decide if you're going to join with this justice or join with this justice. What I don't know, and I'd like to call like Jeffrey Rosen, a real SCOTUS scholar, to answer, like, who gets the final word? When are they done? Because you've got Clarence Thomas seeing what Ketanji Brown Jackson is going to write, and Ketanji Brown Jackson seeing what Clarence Thomas is going to write, and each of them are responding to the other. But at what point is are we done here? All in? Any more bets? Any more bets? So he devotes 7 pages to trying to pick apart what she says. He wrote his own opinion, as Axios points out, ostensibly to agree with the majority ruling, but also to take on Jackson. And he says this about her. As she sees things, we are all inexorably trapped in a fundamentally racist society. He said that Jackson set out to label all blacks as victims, adding, her desire to do so is unfathomable to me. So now she comes back, but only in a footnote. He takes 7 pages, she takes a footnote. Here's what she says about him. Justice Thomas's prolonged attack responds to a dissent I did not write in order to assail an admissions program that does not exist and ignites too many more straw men to list or to fully extinguish. That's what she said. Then there was a final zinger from Justice Sotomayor, who responded with what she called the most obvious data point available to this institution today. Quote, the 3 justices of color on this court graduated from elite universities and law schools with race-conscious admissions programs and achieved successful legal careers, she wrote. Josh Gerstein, by the way, has a good piece at Smerconish.com today from Politico, to which we've linked, explaining the whole Ketanji Brown Jackson, Clarence Thomas thing. Finally, the other footnote that caught my eye and caught other people's eyes, Huffington Post led with it. We linked to that at Smerconish.com today. I truly did a tremendous amount of reading trying to determine, okay, which of these presents something unique that my audience would appreciate. This from HuffPo points out that, and many are saying it, but they devoted a lot of space to it. In the opinion, Chief Justice Roberts writes this: but we have permitted race-based admissions only within the confines of narrow restrictions. University programs must comply with strict scrutiny. They may never use race as a stereotype or negative, and at some point they must end. Respondents' admissions systems, however well-intentioned, meaning Harvard and UNC, and implemented in good faith, fail each of these criteria. They must therefore be invalidated under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. So that's the crux of the opinion. That is him saying unconstitutional, Harvard and UNC. But there's a footnote. Footnote number 4 at the end of that sentence. What does it say? The United States, as amicus curiae, contends that race-based admissions programs, that means a friend of the court brief that they filed, contends that race-based admissions programs further compelling interests at our nation's military academies. No military academy is a party to these cases, however, and none of the courts below addressed the propriety of race-based admissions systems in that context. This opinion also does not address the issue in light of the potentially distinct interests that military academies may present. What? He's expressly saying this opinion might not apply to our military academies. And if the military academies want to continue to use race-conscious admissions, we're not passing judgment on that. Wow, that's really unbelievable, and it's in a footnote. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens at our academies going forward. And you know, this upset the progressive justices as well. Sotomayor saying, to the extent the court suggests national security interests are distinct, those interests cannot explain the court's narrow exemption, as national security interests are also implicated at civilian universities. You have an activist, Georgetown Law adjunct professor, Arjun Sethi, saying, quote, die for us, but don't enroll in our schools. The most disturbing part of the decision is that it exempts military academies. You want to read more about that, go to Smerconish.com, check out the newsletter, look at my number one story of the day. All right, more headlines from Smerconish.com, the Friday edition, heading into a holiday weekend of the newsletter. TC, what else caught your eye?
I have to say that piece from the Washington Post by Tamar Haspel talking about whose fault is obesity. The lead of that piece was such a great metaphor, analogy, story, what have you. Let me cut to the chase, though. What she's saying is that the blame of obesity, whose fault is obesity, most of the blame rests with one culprit. Her thought on that culprit is the food industry and the quantity that they're serving at restaurants, that kind of thing. And this is what she says. Let's see if this makes sense to you. She says, let's say I'm organizing a tennis tournament at your local club. You're pretty good, but you're still surprised when you see the pairings and find that in the first round you're playing Serena Williams. You lose because, of course, you lose. Whose fault is it? Yours because your forehand really needs work, or mine because I put you in a situation where you were tragically, comically overmatched? Mine, of course, and this is exactly what has happened with food. A combination of factors created a Serena Williams of food environment, and most of us don't have the forehand for it. I just thought that was such an unbelievable explanation.
Like we're outgunned.
For what's going on in the food industry. We're outgunned.
They
Michael.
have our number.
We're outgunned, outmanned, yeah, exactly.
It reminds me of big tech having the number of adolescents, teenagers, when they go online. It's like it's a mismatch, and you're going to come out on the short end of the stick. Can't they make stuff that's good to eat? Okay, not like a grain bowl. Okay, something like pasta that's not going to make us fat. Can't they do that?
No, but the whole point is but why? Because they're serving these huge bowls of pasta and salty, cheesy goodness, and we're all in for it.
I don't want your Aussie bowl. Okay?
Aussie?
What? What is it?
What? Huh? Acai.
Yeah, okay. I'm not eating it.
Close.
Little red sauce,
no,
please.
I know you're not eating it.
And by the way, could you bring over the Parmesan? I need some butter
and leave it
with this bread.
Right, and leave it there, please, because that little like sprinkling that you're doing, if you just show the Parmesan, that doesn't count. You want to pile it high.
I'll have the $22 bottle of Chianti, please. Thank you.
Oh, boy. I'd like but I mean, honestly, and she goes through all these. Do you know 73% of Americans are overweight or obese? And now, of course, some of that might come from what is the definition of overweight, because then a lot of people are in that category.
I would be interested in that next week. I, of course, read and flagged the story. I would be interested in pursuing that when we could do a call segment next week. It also lends itself to a poll question. So. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it was absolutely fantastic and very interesting. And again, there's another piece that you posted from Reuters talking about whether aspartame is a possible carcinogen. So the sweetener that is in, by the way, Diet Coke, chewing gum, Snapple,
big story.
Carcinogen is really huge story.
Big story.
Waves.
Do you ever travel and you'll get like a Mexican Coke with real sugar in it?
Tastes different. Yeah. Yeah, it tastes different.
Yeah, I think better.
Well, but okay, when you say real sugar as opposed to Coke versus Diet Coke,
yeah,
I mean regular Coke has sugar.
Like you get it. I think I had it in Cuba, like real sugar cane.
Oh,
in my soda.
Oh, like sugar cane as opposed to sugar. So you're not saying Diet Coke versus Mexican Coke. You're talking about
real sugar
Coke
versus a substitute. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what I'm saying,
do you like
frankly.
Diet Coke or regular? What are you saying?
I have no idea. I can't.
Regular Coke or Diet Coke?
I can't drink a Coke beyond 12 noon. It'll keep me up at night. That's my cutoff. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's a caffeine situation, not a sugar situation.
Right.
Okay. Good talk.
Does caffeine make my ass look fat?
Oh my God.
All right. What else interested you from Smerconish.com? Time's a wasting.
Okay, Paul McCartney. I thought Paul McCartney.
Love
first
this.
of all,
Love
I
this.
thought I love it too, but I thought that the headline it was a little harsh.
Oh, 2 days,
I thought the headline
2
was
days
a
in a
little
row.
harsh.
2 days in a row, Miss Manners is critiquing my headlines. Last
No, I
call
thought
for
the
Jamaican
headline-
tourist.
That was terrible. He died. Come on, you can't do that. But you did not. You shared the headline was equally bad in the actual piece as it was at Smerconish.com. And the idea is Paul McCartney blames fellow rock star for ruining live concerts for everyone. That's not exactly what the story is. I mean, the story is that he was talking about Paul McCartney was ruminating and reminiscing about the time of when they used to only come on for a short set and be part of a whole sort of lineup and only do a couple songs. And because people were doing like a 4-minute juggling act, a half an hour on the stage felt like a long time. And so what he's saying is, gosh, I wish we could go back to that time. But Bruce Springsteen, my friend who I love, and I joke with him about it, ruined that by doing this whole long set and being on for hours and hours at a time. That's what he was saying. But it wasn't like a harsh blame situation.
No, he was,
oh boy,
he was like
my
needling
buddy.
him. He was like needling him, given that they're both old men. You remind me in bringing this up, and I love the story too. Amazing that McCartney and Springsteen are still both performing. I have tickets to see the Boss again in like a month in Philadelphia. Yeah, going to see Springsteen again. So my friend, my mentor, Beatle expert Larry Kane, who was at the famous Shea Stadium concert. You can fact check me on this, but I'm 98% sure. In that Beatles famous concert, they only performed 30 minutes. That was, as McCartney says, that was the norm.
Right.
That was the norm at the time. When they played in Hamburg and they were getting their sea legs, it was like a 30-minute show. And Springsteen, people are disappointed if Bruce leaves the stage below 3 hours, even at his age.
1965 U.S. tour, the Beatles played for just 30 minutes at each show, following sets by support acts such as Brenda Holloway and the King Curtis Band, Cannibal and the Headhunters, and Sounds Incorporated.
Right.
So that's exactly what he was saying, like back in the good old days.
Yeah.
When we only had to spend
the Beatles songs were like 3 minutes each, right? So you would still get a lot of songs, but I mean, Freebird would eat up all that clock. What else interested you from Smerconish.com?
Well, since we're talking about stage shows, how about Pink? This was from yesterday's Smerconish.com newsletter, but we didn't make comment on it. How about Pink reacting to a fan throwing the dead mother's ashes on stage during a concert?
Not good. Not good.
And by the way, I saw some more news today that some country singer got hit in the eye by a friendship bracelet. Like, things are being thrown on the stage that are damaging and interrupting concerts. This has to take the cake, though. Like, your mother's ashes.
Yeah, and you
she looks hesitant, and she retrieves. She says, "This is your mom." She asked the audience member, "I don't know how to feel about this."
Right. You can't. Like, if you're Pink, you're in a very bad position because you want to be sympathetic to the concert goer's dead mother, but you can't encourage this because you don't want it to be a thing. Like, what happened to the good?
I was grateful that she actually the person threw a bag as opposed to like just through the ash. Right.
What happened to the good old days where instead you would run out to the 50-yard line and spread your loved one's ashes, in the middle of an Eagles game? Like, that's the way it used to be done.
The good old days?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. Good talk. Okay. So some more, actually, you know what? There were two specific headlines that we missed that I just want to see if we can sneak in at the end of this broadcast. U.S. church attendance still lower than pre-pandemic. This is a Gallup survey saying that there's a small, but they say noticeable decline compared to what it was before COVID. So we've talked a lot about how the travel agency is back, cruises are back, all these things are back. Guess what's not back? Church. Church is not back to full capacity yet.
Yeah, and I think the pandemic came at a time when churches could ill afford, one more reason for people not to go to church. Does that, another subject maybe for next week, does that pendulum ever swing? Does it ever swing? Do we see an uptick in people going to church? I don't know. One more. Make it a winner.
That either. One more. And okay, this is a winner. Washington Post headline: barely a quarter of Americans still have landlines. Who are they? This is
me.
Where are the most? You still have a landline telephone.
We do. No one answers it, but we have one. No one answers it. It rings, and we all just kind of look at each other at dinner like, not for me, not for me, not for me.
Why do you have it? And why
I
do you
don't
have
know.
an actual phone line attached to it?
I was going to say it's tied to our alarm system, but I don't even know if that's true. Because it seems to me I get a text. If my alarm goes off, I get a text on my phone. So frankly, I don't know why we still have it. I don't know.
There you go. Only 2% of U.S. adults use only landlines. How about that? 3% mostly rely on landlines, and 1% don't have phones at all.
They're 126 years of age. Thank you, TC.
65 and over.
Listen to TC After Dark this holiday weekend.
Thank you.
I'll see you on CNN, and thanks so much for listening and reading the newsletter.